Hello, I'm Jess Winkelaar, and I'm serving as Minnesota's Social Studies Specialist and the Program Director for the Minnesota Center for Social Studies Education, or the CSSE. The purpose of this video is to provide an overview of the 2011 Minnesota K-12 Academic Standards in Social Studies. As part of a national movement towards a standards-based curriculum, Minnesota introduced a set of social studies standards in 2004. This set of standards was revised in 2011 and went through a rulemaking process and was adopted in 2013. The current set of social studies standards is up to be reviewed in 2020. State statute requires that all students satisfactorily complete all social studies standards and benchmarks in order to graduate. There is no standardized test for social studies in Minnesota. Actually, there is a state statute that forbids the commissioner to create a social studies test. The Minnesota Social Studies Standards are put in place to ensure that all of our students master the concepts and skills in social studies that prepare them for college, career, and civic life. And this third C, civic life, is extremely important to the standards and benchmarks in Minnesota. How are the Minnesota Social Studies Standards organized? Kindergarten through third grade will have foundational benchmarks in each of the 4 disciplines: citizenship and government, economics, geography, and history. In 4th through 8th grade, there are lead disciplines. For example, 4th graders will study geography of North America as the lead discipline. Most of the benchmarks will focus here, but 4th graders will still touch on the other social studies disciplines. In 9th through 12th grade, the disciplines are grade banded. This allows for schools to focus on one discipline at a time. However, as with all of the anchor standards and benchmarks, teachers can be integrating the disciplines within and beyond social studies. The standards set forth what students should know and be able to do by the time they graduate from high school. When developing the Standards Committee put a lot of intentionality on how the benchmarks are laid out. They are scaffolded to ensure that students master each benchmark by the time they graduate. Here are 3 components to keep in mind with the 2011 Social Studies Standards. First of all, this version of the standards is organized by anchor standards, which are rooted in college and career readiness. Secondly, the standards are organized into grade-specific benchmarks for grades K through 8. And third, this set of standards is intended to be integrated with the 2010 Minnesota ELA standards. The anchor standards are intended to really help students master the social studies skills and big ideas. Here's an example of an anchor standard from Citizenship and Government. Democratic government depends on informed and engaged citizens who exhibit civic skills and values, practice civic discourse, vote and participate in elections, apply inquiry and analysis skills, and take action to solve problems and shape public policy. This is an amazing anchor standard that we want all of our Minnesota students to complete by the time they graduate from high school. The grade-specific benchmarks in K through 8 offer an opportunity for students to learn specific skills at each grade level. This is very helpful in situations where students may move from one district to another. The benchmarks for K through 8 and the 9 through 12 grade banded benchmarks are organized by concepts, content, and skills. These 3 components are sometimes present in one benchmark, and at other times benchmarks may emphasize one or the other. An example of this is social studies inquiry. There are many skills in the social studies benchmarks, one of which is inquiry in each of the disciplines. This focus on inquiry is not only at the Minnesota level, but it's also at the national level. And so the inquiry benchmarks really ask students to think like historians, think like geographers, think in civic-minded ways to solve public problems, and also to make economic decisions using reasoned decision-making processes. The third and final component of the 2011 Social Studies Standards is really an emphasis on integrating them with the English Language Arts Standards. There's actually a set of standards and benchmarks within the ELA benchmarks to bring to life in social studies classes. At the elementary level, teachers can really integrate social studies in ELA to bring concepts from social studies to life using literacy skills. The National Council for Social Studies gives us this vision for social studies education. The primary purpose of social studies is to help young people make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good as citizens of a culturally diverse, democratic society in an interdependent world. This is a great reminder to us as we bring the social studies standards to life in Minnesota for our students. The Minnesota Center for Social Studies Education website has a wealth of resources for both teachers and students to support social studies education. Under the Minnesota Standards tab, there's an entire video series called Doing Social Studies. This video series has K through 5 videos and also some middle school and high school videos to show what each benchmark looks like and some strategies for bringing them to life. Another resource on the CSSE is under the Curriculum tab. The guides and resources are teacher-created documents that provide a benchmark by benchmark overview of each of the standards in the different disciplines along with a resource list. And these are created by teachers for you to use to help bring social studies to life for students. The CSSE has several other resources for teachers as well as some videos for students. So please visit the CSSE, visit the Department of Education website with any questions you have about the social studies standards. Thank you.